I'm a terrible, terrible person.
That's not true.
I would do something like that. She was a good girl and a friend of mine.
It's Tuesday, and you're listening to Murder Unscripted.
My name's Ed. For the past 2 decades, I've been producing true crime content for some of your favorite networks like Hulu, Oxygen, and of course, Investigation Discovery.
And I'm Melissa, Ed's bestie and walking, talking true crime database.
We've combined my behind-the-scenes insight with Melissa's morbid curiosity to bring you a podcast that immerses you in the true crime genre like never before.
We highlight victims' cases and bring you exclusive insight from the people who lived through them, with a touch of humor to lighten even the darkest stories.
This is Murder Unscripted.
Dun dun dun!
Oh, hey there, crime crew. Welcome to episode 109 of Murder Unscripted, the best true crime podcast ever, according to my mom.
Thanks, Dawn.
We are a proud member of the Darkcast Network, which brings you only the best in indie podcasts. And I'm your host, veteran true crime producer Ed Hydock, here with a woman who lights up a room, but only if she's looking for snacks at night. Melissa Spivey.
It's so true. The refrigerator light is super bright.
I don't need to turn a light on to find my snacks. Like, I know in the cabinet right where they are.
Why don't you tell the truth and tell everyone how they're in your nightstand?
Shut up. Sometimes they're on the nightstand. Well, we are in week 4 of what is becoming our scariest and most eye-opening block to date, collegiate crimes.
Yeah, and I'm rethinking, maybe we should have named this block, Hey Dumb College Boy, No Means No, and Don't Drink Alcohol If You Can't Handle It.
Isn't that sad but true? That almost all the stories...
Not as catchy, but
yeah, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. But seriously, what happened to getting wasted and going to a convenience store for a hoagie or I don't know, going to bed? That's what I did in college.
Yeah, go to bed.
Right. Well, I'm curious to see if our listeners can guess where this one is heading today, because this case actually breaks the pattern of the block a little bit that we've seen. And by that I mean, at least as far as I can tell, there's no alcohol, no crazy parties, but the danger was hiding inside the victim's own friend group, which to me is the scariest type of crime, because you're breaking that sanctity of your clique. You know, you can never imagine. It's kind of like when we do these small town crimes. People would never want to think it's someone from their little small town, like your inner circle. That's heartbreaking. Well,
and I think the friend ones hurt the most because it's someone you loved and trusted. We did the Friends Till the End block back in, I think, November of 24. And one of the cases, Jason Sweeney, was a tough one because his friends were anything but.
Well, and Ashley Klein, the girl who was burned alive near us.
Yes.
That was her friends too, or quote unquote friends.
I know. People are awful.
They are.
Well, today's case is incredibly tragic, and it's also incredibly bizarre. Not so much that the case itself is bizarre, but the suspects, the people of interest, and the motive itself, it's a lot. So hold tight. And this murder, it did take place in 1980, but it would actually take 30 years for this poor family to get justice. So today we're going to the University of South Alabama, which is often just called South to the students and the locals. And the university touts itself as the flagship of the Gulf Coast. And it's located in Mobile, Alabama. Also, fun fact, did you know that Mobile, Alabama and New Orleans kind of fight on who first started Mardi Gras?
Do you know I did know that, and that's only because of that Bayou series I was doing. I spent so much time down there. I learned so much about the history of those places so yeah, I did actually know that.
Well, I learned that when researching this case. I had no idea.
Cool.
So when our case begins, it's the beginning of 1980, and the university had just shy of about 8,000 students enrolled. And at the time, the majority of these students were commuters, with only about 600 to 700 students living on campus.
No, it's not a lot.
No, not at all. I do think that's changed today, but this is back in 80.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the students living on campus was 18-year-old freshman Katherine Foster. Katherine had started attending University of South Alabama, which I'll probably just start calling USA for short.
Mm-hmm. I think other people do too.
Yeah. So she started attending the fall prior, so in the fall of 1979. And Katherine was really lucky because she was attending college with two of the most important and just two of her most favorite people in her life. And that was her best friend, Tish O'Sullivan, and Katherine's boyfriend, a boy named Tom Jodin. So Katherine, Tish, and Tom, they had all grown up together in the small town of Pascagoula, Mississippi, which is just about 45 minutes away from campus. And Katherine and Tish had actually been friends since grade school, and they had attended high school together at a small Catholic school. It was called Our Lady of Victory Central High School.
Okay.
Tom, on the other hand, he had gone to a public school. I'm not actually sure how he and Katherine met. That never came up in my research, but at some point during both of their senior years of high school, Tom and Katherine started dating. So Katherine, Tom, and Tish were super close, and actually recently, the girls especially had brought in like a third person to their little group. She was another USA freshman who also happened to have hailed from Pascagoula, Mississippi. She was a young woman named Jamie Kellum. Jamie didn't go to the same high school as Katherine and Tish, but at the beginning of the school year, she just happened to be in line at registration with Katherine and Tish, and like the three of them got to talking and realized they were all from the same hometown. And from what I gathered, Tom and Jamie had gone to the same public high school, but like they weren't friends. They didn't have the same social circles. If they had any interaction, it may have been through sports because both were really, really good athletes. Jamie had played tennis, and Tom played tennis in high school also, but he was a really big soccer player, and actually he was at the University of South Alabama on a soccer scholarship. So basically, from the beginning of the school year, Katherine, Jamie, and Tish had been like the three musketeers. They hung out all the time, they studied together, got meals together, and they did spend a lot of time going to Tom's soccer games. And actually, on the morning that our case basically starts, the three girls had made plans to hang out.
Okay.
So now it's the morning of Thursday, February 21st, 1980, and Katherine was getting ready to meet with the girls to go shopping. A new shopping mall had recently opened in Mobile, and in the 1980s and 90s, nothing was more sacred to a teenage girl than the mall.
Oh, facts. And boys, like we didn't have much to do back then. We would go to the mall all the time.
I just kept imagining that the three of them probably got orange Julius's.
Guaranteeing, and went to the wall to get there.
Of course. Sam Goody.
Do you guys remember with the CDs that they had the wall lifetime guarantee? So if you would break it or scratch it or do anything, they would replace the CD for free.
Really? That was before my time. I don't remember that.
That was good stuff. You would pay like $2 extra per CD, but it would come with basically an insurance plan.
That sounds incredible. See, I missed out on so much.
You did.
The girls had been excited for this new mall for weeks, and it just so happened that on Thursday morning, they each had some free time, and they decided to go check it out. So Katherine got dressed in blue jeans and a light blue hoodie. She put on a little bit of makeup and brushed her shoulder-length dark blonde hair, and she chose to leave it down that day rather than like putting it up in a ponytail. So Katherine left her room and headed towards the dorm parking lot where the girls were planning to meet at Jamie's car. A little while later, Tish walks towards the dorm parking lot, heading to Jamie's car, and she sees Jamie, she greets her friend, and then she asks, where's Katherine? Well, Jamie explains that Katherine had been there, but then she realized she had forgotten something and ran back to her dorm room. But at this point, she had been gone a while. So Tish was like, all right, I'm sure she'll be back, and she got in Jamie's car, and the two of them are just sitting there waiting for a few minutes, and they're waiting a few more minutes. And after a while, there was still no sign of Katherine. So they're both kind of like, what the hell? Like, where did she go?
Yeah.
So after waiting a little bit longer, they kind of assumed Katherine wasn't coming. Like maybe she got caught up with something, or maybe she had run into Tom. And I'm going to come back to this later in the episode. But Katherine and Tom had been in a bit of a tiff, a little fight. So, yeah. So Tish and Jamie, they kind of thought that maybe Katherine and Tom had run into each other and like decided to talk.
Well, and I think the one thing that our younger listeners at least have to realize is that this was a period where you just couldn't text them and be like, hey, running late. You ghosted your friends because you had to.
It's funny you said that because, and I think it's so important to remind everyone, because while I was researching this, I'm sitting here and I'm like, that's really weird that they just so easily kind of accepted the idea that Katherine had made other plans. But just like you said, I realized that A, this was 1980, so there were no cell phones. So if something had come up, Katherine wouldn't be able to just send a quick text message. And B, again, it's 1980. And I don't feel like people were as safety conscious and like paranoid as they are today.
Definitely not. No.
Yeah. And by that, I mean, like, because people weren't in constant communication like they are now, you didn't always know every single move your friends or family members made.
Yeah, what's the first thing they do when trouble goes down? They ping cell phone records to see every little, everything you do on your phone is tracked now, and they go to your social media page. Have they posted? Like, that's how in touch we are with everybody, that it's changed the way investigations happen.
Well, and like, if you think about it, when, like, 30 years ago, if you didn't hear from someone for a day or two, you didn't think anything of it.
No big deal.
Now, if I don't hear from you within like an hour, I'm like, oh, he's dead. Like,
I know. When you were sick the past couple of days, I just assumed you were done for. I was like, oh, she finally bit it.
So regardless, Tish and Jamie, after waiting a reasonable amount of time, they decide to head on their shopping trip, and they figured they'd catch up with Katherine later. And actually, it just so happened that Tish had to be back by 2 p.m. that day because she had a 2 p.m. class, which Katherine was also in. So a few hours later, Tish and Jamie are back on campus, and Tish is sitting in her 2 p.m. class, and she's waiting for Katherine to get there, and people are filing in. And then the professor starts class, and still no Katherine. And by the time the class is over, still no Katherine.
Oh, man. See, now's when you can probably cue that crow. Although, you maybe could have cued it a couple seconds ago when she didn't show up at the mall. But I think now's the time when, like, the real panic, I feel like, is setting in.
Yeah, like when she never came back to Jamie's car. I agree.
Right.
Well, Tish is now really starting to panic. So she goes back to Katherine's dorm. Katherine's not there. So she finds Jamie, and she explains that Katherine didn't show up to class, and the girls start looking for their friend. So the first person they want to find, besides Katherine, of course, is Tom, because odds were the couple was probably together. But when they find Tom just a little while later, he's in the library and he's totally alone. So Tish and Jamie ask him, like, where's Katherine? And Tom looks at them, he's puzzled, and he's like, I don't know, like, I thought she was with you guys. And this is when the three of them compare notes and realize that none of them had seen Katherine, like, that whole day.
Wow.
So the three of them start looking everywhere they can think of, and finally, at about 5 p.m. or so, Tish decides it's time to call Katherine's parents. Like, you know, they're thinking maybe there was an emergency and she was at home, or at least maybe her parents would know where she was.
Right. That's what I would think, too.
Well, when Tish calls them, Katherine's parents, Leroy and Joanne Foster, had absolutely no idea where Katherine was. Like, they hadn't heard from her, and they certainly had no idea she was missing. They assumed she was at classes.
Right.
And the last time anyone from the Foster family had talked to Katherine was that morning. She had actually talked to her younger brother on the phone, and this was just a really brief, like, hey, how are you? Kind of just casual type catch-up conversation. Like,
nothing out of the ordinary.
Right. So knowing their daughter, Katherine's parents were immediately concerned. Katherine was quite literally the perfect daughter. She didn't break the rules, she didn't let her parents worry, and she would never be out of touch like this. So Katherine's parents hang up the phone with Tish, and immediately they called the Mobile Police Department to report their daughter missing. However, and this is just so damn 1980, the Mobile Police Department had a policy that anyone over the age of 18 could not be reported missing for 24 hours.
Really?
This was a department-wide policy. And the police officer who talked to the Fosters, he was sympathetic, but, you know, he also explained, you know, these college kids are always out partying and getting caught up, like, hanging out with friends, and, you know, I'm sure she's going to show up.
It's interesting, though, because this whole, like, it's so 1980s thing, despite the fact that this always comes up in these old stories, there is zero law, be it federal or state, that says you have to wait 24 to 48 hours or whatever it is to report someone missing. I feel like this is just something that we think we've heard, but this is not true.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just know that in one of the shows I watched about this case, there is a Mobile Police Department officer that is on the show, and he said that at the time that this case happened, their policy was anyone over 18 had to wait 24 hours to file a report.
Wow. And I'm sure he went out of his way to be like, but that's not how we do it anymore. That's not
Oh,
what we're
yeah.
doing anymore.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
He looked very sheepish when he said it. He's like, at the time, the department did have a 24-hour policy to... He already has that, like, slow panhandle, southern twang. And then everything he says is just even more drawn out. And he, like, doesn't make eye contact with the camera. It's bad.
But yeah, because you don't want people hearing that your department had this pretty much, because that's not what people want to hear. You know, so you don't want to be putting that out there that our department doesn't respond, doesn't take these calls seriously.
Yeah, I was watching that and I was like, oh, bro, that's not a good look.
Well, I mean, at least he did damage control.
Yeah.
So PSA, everybody, if you find yourself in this situation, do not wait. Like, you can report someone missing the moment you have genuine concern about them. And it sounds to me like the Fosters, knowing their daughter the way they did, their concern was totally warranted.
Oh, 1000%. I mean, Catherine's family and friend, they knew that there was absolutely no world where Katherine was just out partying. So before we get any further, let's talk about Katherine and who she was. She wasn't just a victim. Like, you know, she wasn't a headline, a police report, a case file. She was a real live person. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and she was somebody to a lot of somebodies. She had things she loved, things she worried about, dreams for her future, and people who loved her dearly. And I think this is especially poignant right now, at least for me, after our interview with our June guests. I feel like people need to remember that these are not characters in a story.
I believe they said that exact thing in the interview.
Yes. One of our guests did say that exact thing, and it's kind of been echoing in my head for about a week now. So I felt like I needed to bring it up, especially in this case.
Yep. And I feel like that is how things are treated. It's a show.
It's true. So Katherine Elizabeth Foster was born on March 11th, 1961 to Joanne and Leroy Walker Foster. And she grew up in a very busy household with 6 siblings, 4 brothers and 2 sisters. So there were 7 kids altogether.
It's a big family.
So reading about Katherine, I got the sense that from the very beginning, when she was just a little girl, she seemed to be the kind of person that people were naturally drawn to. She had this really easy smile and a contagious laugh and a warmth that just made other people feel comfortable around her, like, immediately. And I know that her faith played a huge role in her life. She was very active in her church and her youth group, and she didn't just talk about helping others, though. Like, she did the damn thing. She participated in missionary trips to Mexico, and she spent time working with underprivileged children. And she was, like, always looking for ways to serve others and make a difference.
That's really cool.
Yeah, she had a lot going on. She was also incredibly musically talented. Katherine was apparently a skilled pianist. She was super duper athletic. In high school, she did a ton of sports. And just in school itself, she was known as a diligent, hardworking student who took her education very seriously. And she somehow managed academics, athletics, church activities, volunteer work, all of these things. Oh, and she graduated as a high school salutatorian of her class.
Really? Oh, she was smart.
She was really smart.
You know what, though? I feel like you have to be smart to play piano. I've always been so jealous of people that can play the keys.
Yeah, I feel like smart people generally are good at piano.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know many dumb piano players.
Yeah. In one of the shows I watched, Katherine's mother, Joanne, was on it. And she seemed like such a lovely woman. Like, you just wanted to reach through the TV screen and hug her. And remembering her daughter, Joanne said, quote, "She smiled easily. She laughed easily and often. Just a precious, precious child. A beautiful young woman." End quote.
Sweet.
That description seems to come up again and again when people talk about Katherine. She was bright, compassionate, deeply faithful, and she just genuinely cared about the people around her. And I don't think I've mentioned this thus far, but Katherine was working towards her goal of becoming a physical therapist, which is actually part of the reason that she chose University of South Alabama. Apparently, they had a really good PT program.
I was going to ask that because I don't hear that college come up as something that's known for something, you know?
Yeah, apparently it does have a very good PT, or it did, at least in 1980, have a really good PT program.
Cool.
So back to the case. It's now into the evening hours on Thursday, February 21st, And at this point, we know the police are not going to do anything until at least mid-afternoon the next day. But Katherine's friend and family, they were not going to sit around and wait. They're getting the word out that she's missing, and they're asking other USA students to please remain vigilant and just keep on the lookout for her. And I do want to note, it seems that while the Mobile Police Department itself, they weren't able to help, it does seem like the USA campus police, like they were assisting Katherine's friends and family with spreading the word about her disappearance and helping to distribute flyers with Katherine's information on it.
Okay, good.
Well, by the next day, Friday, February 22nd, there had still been no sightings of Katherine, and finally, that afternoon, Mobile police agreed to file a missing persons report. So there isn't a ton of information about what, if anything, the police did on that Friday, but I will say that on Saturday morning, it was game on to find Katherine, and a massive search was launched on the campus of USA. I've never been to the campus, but it sounds like, especially at the time, there were a lot of heavily wooded areas surrounding this sprawling campus. So they had a lot of ground to cover.
And that's not easy terrain. If she's up in those woods, they're going to need specially trained people and animals and vehicles to get through all that stuff.
Yeah, it seemed like it was really thick, like the forest was dense and there were a lot of thickets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on campus by this time, the feeling was panic. Word of Katherine's disappearance had now reached far and wide, and students and locals alike were scared. They couldn't understand, how does a college student, one of their own, just disappear? So on that Saturday morning around 9 a.m., a group of about 100 students began searching those woods like right around campus. And it sounds like this was a pretty standard grid search where the students are walking like side by side through the woods, like, you know, like elbow to elbow kind of thing.
Yeah.
So around 10:30 that morning, a scream echoed through the woods. The search party had found something. In a small clearing, said to be about just 200 to 300 yards from campus buildings, lay the body of Katherine Foster. So police immediately cordoned off the area, and I cannot imagine being one of those college kids. You have to imagine that for many of them, this was really the first death they had ever experienced, and almost certainly the first death of someone their age, let alone someone they passed on campus or shared a class with or said hello to in the cafeteria.
That's just it. It's like one of their own. I mean, they could be any one of them. Safety is gone.
Right. Like, how do you ever feel safe there again?
Yeah.
So from the very start, police were puzzled by the crime scene. And I'm going to explain this the best as I can. It really looked like Katherine had been walking through these woods and just decided to lay down on the ground. So she was found, she was laying flat on her back. She was fully clothed, staring straight up into the sky. And she was wearing the same light blue hoodie and blue jeans that she had been seen wearing on Thursday morning. And her clothing was in remarkably pristine condition. No rips, no tears, no dirt, no wrinkles.
Really?
Yeah, like everything was perfect. And the only thing a little bit like amiss was there was a small spot on the sole of one of her shoes that was determined to be blood.
Was she even murdered, I'm wondering? Like, the way you're describing it makes me think something happened to her, a medical emergency or something. Maybe she tripped and fell. Like, if there's no obvious, it's a very strange crime scene.
It is. Her makeup was still on and showed very little wear, and her hair still was brushed. It had fanned out around her head. And one of the most shocking things about the state of Katherine's body is there was very little, if any, decomposition. So again, it just kind of looked like she laid down to take a nap. But there was one thing that stood out and told investigators that Katherine had, in fact, been murdered. She had a small bullet hole in the side of her head. Then, upon further inspection, once her body was moved, they found a second small bullet hole in the back of her head.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it would later be determined that Katherine had been shot with a .22 caliber handgun in the back of the head, and then her killer had shot her a second time on the side of her head at her right temple, and this was a close contact wound. Like, it looked like she had been executed.
Man, I gotta stop hearing that.
I know. The area around Katherine's body was also in remarkably good condition. Just like her body and clothing, there was no sign of a struggle. Like, there's no disruption to the flora or the foliage. There's no broken twigs or rustled leaves.
My thought is, one, it's a secondary crime scene, or two, someone like led her there, maybe a friend or someone, and then popped her when she didn't see it coming. That's why there's no struggle.
We'll see. Well, there were no signs of drag marks in the area either, so she hadn't been dragged there, but it was really hard to believe that someone carrying a body into the woods wouldn't be noticed by someone on campus.
Right. Maybe someone drunk or something you're helping back to their dorm, but not into the woods.
Right. And again, that's just how close this area was to the buildings and dorms on campus. You would think someone would see you going into the woods.
Right.
Dr. Leroy Riddick, and he was of the State Department of Forensic Sciences, he performed the autopsy, and he believed that due to the state of Katherine's body, she had been dead for approximately 8 to 24 hours before her body was discovered. But if you'll remember, she was last seen on Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So where the hell had she been in the time between going missing and then being murdered?
Yeah, figure that out, and I think you find your killer.
I would say so. Well, then they get a tip that could make time of death more clear, but it would also make things a lot more confusing. So a University of South Alabama student came forward pretty quickly and told investigators that on Friday night, so the night before Katherine's body had been found, this student had thought she heard gunshots at 2:38 a.m. And the reason she was so sure of the time was that she suffered from asthma, and she had awoke at 2:30 a.m. having a minor asthma attack. So she woke up, she used her inhaler, and in an attempt to just get some fresh air in her lungs, she opened her dorm room window. And once her window was open, she'd been standing next to it when all of a sudden she heard 2 loud booms. And originally she just thought they had been firecrackers, but now she's wondering, oh my God, did I hear gunshots?
Yeah, and I feel like some of the best witness statements come from people that are doing something like that. I know when if I get up in the middle of the night to pee, or I get up and I remember I'm coughing or something, I'll notice the time. You associate it with an event.
Yeah, because she was up for a reason, something other than this happened.
Right.
So police are taking in all this information, and just like with the crime scene, they're again puzzled. So Katherine had not been sexually assaulted, and it also seemed as though she had not put up a struggle. Her body showed no signs of being confined, and there were no ligature marks to show that she had been tied up. So investigators have a lot to think about, but they are fairly certain that Katherine was killed by someone she knew, or at the very least, she was killed by someone in authority. Someone like a campus security guard, a police officer, maybe even a professor, you don't know, but somebody of authority. So investigators are trying to plot things out, all while they're still searching the campus for clues, but they're just coming up empty-handed. So in a last-ditch effort to find something, anything that will help them solve Katherine's murder, they decide to move their search from land to water. There was a large duck pond on campus, so they sent divers down to kind of check it out. And apparently this water was so muddy that divers had virtually no visibility, and they were just kind of feeling around on the ground of this, on the bottom of this pond, hoping for the best.
God knows what they'll find down there.
Oof. Well, against all odds, they recovered a .22 caliber handgun.
Really? Someone just lobbed it in the lake there.
Yeah. And for a minute, they are like, oh my God, we found our murder weapon. Yeah. But ballistics quickly ruled it out. That was not the gun.
They found a gun.
Yeah, which we never talk about again. So I'm like, wow, how'd that get there?
Yeah, whose gun is that?
Yeah. So police now have to begin looking into who could have murdered Katherine. And of course, they're going to look at the people closest to her. So first off, they talk to Tish and Jamie, but both young women have ironclad alibis for that Saturday night. So another one of the first people they look at is her boyfriend, Tom.
Naturally.
Not only because he was her boyfriend, but also because investigators had heard, like I mentioned earlier, that the couple had been in a little bit of a fight recently. So according to sources, it turns out that the weekend before Katherine's murder, they had all been at a party, and apparently, Katherine turned a corner or something and saw Tom kissing another girl.
Ooh, no good.
No. And we don't really have much detail on this other than to say I think he was a dumb college kid who made a mistake. Yeah. I'm not condoning what he did, but by all accounts, everything I read and the way that everyone talked about this couple, like, he really did love Katherine, and they had a really sweet, high school sweetheart relationship.
Yeah, he was just being stupid.
Exactly. So one of the investigators in one of the shows I watched, which I will source, but I watched like 5 different ones, and one of the investigators talked about Tom, and he said that this poor kid was just so destroyed over Katherine's murder. And they gave Tom a polygraph test, and apparently he failed miserably.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the same investigator, he actually said like he had never really thought Tom had anything to do with the murder, and he felt the reason Tom failed so badly was just because he was so emotionally distraught and messed up over losing Katherine.
Yeah, I think polygraphs are pretty much just a stress test, to be honest.
I totally agree. And like, here's this 18-year-old kid, like, just lost his girlfriend. Now he's being looked at for murder. Like, of course you're going to be freaking out.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in the PD. Like, it's different if cops come to you, like in your dorm, and question you, you don't think much of it. You come down to the station, and it's just even if you're innocent, that's like there's a seriousness to it.
Yeah, it's definitely like anxiety inducing. Well, after a little more back and forth that I'm not even going to go into, Tom was crossed off the suspect list. Now, there really isn't anyone else in Katherine's life that stood out, so investigators move on to the idea that her killer was a person of authority. The first person they look at is a maintenance man who worked for the campus or the college. This is fucking wild. So this guy worked at the university. Prior to that, he had been a guardsman. So just a few months prior to Katherine's murder, there had been a hurricane. And this man and his fellow guardsmen, yeah. Those guys, they were tasked with enforcing a citywide curfew, I guess in preparation for this big hurricane. Right. So he's driving around one night, like enforcing the curfew rules, and he comes across this young woman, and this girl was a University of South Alabama student, and in a super eerie coincidence, she looked remarkably like Katherine.
Oh, really?
Well, it gets worse. So this girl was out walking, so he pulls over and tells her, like, you're not supposed to be out here, you're breaking curfew, blah, blah, blah. So she tells him that she was walking home, she lived right near the campus, and it would turn out that she had gotten in a fight with her boyfriend where I think she was supposed to stay that night, and she stormed out, maybe totally forgetting about this curfew, so she's walking home. So this guardsman maintenance man, he offers her a ride, and she accepts. Well, when they get to her street, she tells him, like, okay, this is my road. He completely drives past.
Oh, creepy.
He proceeds to take her to a deserted area, and he tries to sexually assault her.
Wow.
Thank God, but she manages to push him away and get out of the car, and she takes off. This psychopath pulls out a rifle and shoots her in the leg.
This is terrifying. This is like a horror movie in itself. And this guy didn't do it?
No, spoiler alert, he didn't kill her, but
oh my God.
The bigger question here is, why was this man working on a college campus?
And how is he not in jail?
Thank you.
God. Wow.
I have no idea. Like, you would think that attempting to rape and actually shoot a current student would be a big red flag on your job application.
And given the way that she was found, you could have told me this was the action of the perpetrator and I would have believed you. Like, this is just some guy.
Yeah, this guy was awful. Well,
crazy.
He didn't do it. I have no idea what he's doing now, but yikes. So once that crazy-ass psycho is crossed off their list, the police next look at 2 campus security guards who were working the night Katherine was murdered, Michael Maris and Stoney Stewart. And the guards were working together, and they're able to, like, alibi each other, but they do have some information. They can confirm hearing those 2 loud pops around 2:30 a.m., just like the girl with the asthma heard. And originally, the security guards thought it was like firecrackers popping off, or maybe they even thought it could have been like some of the ROTC students.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, but they looked around the campus and they couldn't find anything. And once investigators talked to them, they're able to cross these guys off the list. So, unfortunately, for the next few years, there's really no movement on Katherine's case.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, this is not for lack of trying. I did get the feeling that investigators did really try, and they went above and beyond and chased down all the leads that they could. But I mean, you can't create evidence or pull suspects out of thin air.
No, and I feel like that there's a lot of pressure because this is an attractive white girl. I hate to say it that way, but it's a monumental case because of who it was, because of where it happened. There was a lot of probably public scrutiny where they felt like they needed to arrest somebody. So when they didn't for all those years, that scrutiny just mounts and mounts and mounts. So that's a lot of pressure for a police department.
I completely agree. Well, on February 22nd, 1983, so this is almost exactly 3 years to the day after Katherine's murder, police get a phone call about a suspected suicide of 30-year-old Michael Maris.
Oh no, the security guard.
Yes, the same Michael Maris who was working at University of South Alabama when Katherine was murdered.
If I saw that as a detective, it'd be like, what was he hiding?
That's kind of one of the things that they're thinking too. Well, it's determined that Michael Maris did take his own life. He had overdosed and taken something like more than 200 sleeping pills.
Wow.
But this wasn't necessarily a case for the police. However, when they went to, I think they did a welfare check, and that's where they found him. And some of the things they found in his home were concerning, to say the least.
Like what? I'm curious.
Okay. So first they discovered that Michael seemed to be, for lack of a better word, obsessed with Katherine and the investigation into her murder.
Really?
So in the shows I watched, one of the investigators described what they found in Michael's home to be a, quote, shrine to Katherine.
Oh man, this is like a TV show.
It really is. So he had dozens and dozens of news clippings. He had poems about Katherine, and this is wild, but he had somehow gotten a copy of the autopsy report, and he had written all these notes and comments, and isn't that wild?
Skeevy.
And where did you get that? Also, in the years since the murder, Maris had written letters to local newspapers and to the police about the case. Apparently, he was always trying to talk to police about his theories. And an investigator on one of the shows talked about how Maris was supposedly fixated on death and murder and executions. Side note though, I don't know how much stock I put into things like that, because if you look at my internet search history, one could say the exact same thing.
But I wonder if he was doing that because he was like a campus security guard. We call them rent-a-cops. Growing up, I always called them rent-a-cops. You wonder if they had some kind of complex where they always wanted to be more authoritative but more like a real cop.
I don't know. We'll see. Well, I don't necessarily agree about him being fixated on things. I do get that the poems and autopsy report, and that is definitely concerning.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, police are now like, shit, did we rule him out too quickly? Yeah. So they begin digging into Maris's life, and they discovered that he had applied to be a police officer numerous times, but he could not make it past the psych evaluation.
Oh, wow.
So he had then taken security positions at the university and also at a mental health facility. And investigators would come to find out that mental health difficulties, they ran in Maris's family. And actually 6 other relatives, including his mother, had all taken their own lives.
6?
So this dude was struggling. And this to me is especially upsetting because in the early 1980s, there were not many options in getting help for one's mental health.
No, you didn't talk about it either.
Exactly. So I felt that this man was kind of jumped to for things that maybe it wasn't fair, but they're going on and searching his home, and this is when they find something that is beyond concerning, going into horrifying.
We're not there yet?
Nowhere near it. In the second story of this man's garage, and I do want to clarify that I believe he lived with a parent, maybe his father. They just kind of said the family home.
Okay.
Regardless, in the second story of the garage, police find a cage made of chicken wire that could be locked from the outside, and inside of this human-sized cage was a mattress and blankets.
Oh,
and police are like, what the actual fuck?
He was holding somebody captive.
Well, remember, it was believed that Katherine may have been kept somewhere in the time between her disappearance and, when they believe her murder had taken place.
Like Hotel Maris.
We already talked about how Katherine didn't have any signs of being tied up or handcuffed. So it would maybe make sense that if she had, in fact, been kept in this cage, her captor may not have had to bind her.
Right.
So police are thinking that they might actually have their guy. But they go back to the fact that Katherine's body didn't show any signs of being held captive. Remember, her clothing was in perfect condition, her makeup was still on, her hair was, there wasn't anything that showed that she had been in this dirty, creepy little cage. Well, they eventually find out this cage had nothing to do with Katherine, but this is just still so disturbing. They find out that the locked cage in the garage attic had been used to confine Maris's grandfather who suffered from dementia.
Oh my God.
Right? The family kept this poor elderly man locked up in this disgusting cage because they didn't want him to get out and wander.
Wow.
What? And, even more upsetting, I feel like all the shows I watched just kind of breezed over this and we never hear about it again.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of a big deal. You're holding a human in basically an animal pen.
Yeah.
But that may genuinely be one of the most disturbing things I've ever heard that's not related to the crime.
That's what I'm saying.
Wow. This guy,
isn't
so
that
first
wild?
of all, yeah, if this guy didn't do it, he's the best red herring I've ever heard. I mean, he's got all the signs. He's got all the elements that make a great suspect. But I think what jumps out to me most is the fact that, Maris is a textbook example of how easy it is for investigators to make a villain out of completely circumstantial, elements. Mm-hmm. Here you've got this socially isolated guy who has a documented fixation on the victim. That's very important, but he also has this family history of mental illness. Oh, and a literal cage.
Oh, yeah.
If you take all of those pieces individually, they could be a smoking gun, but he had nothing to do with it. The Innocence Project, they get a hold of this stuff all the time. There's documented cases of just like this.
For sure. And I mean, this guy does look, upon first glance, like the guy. Mm-hmm. Well, like they did a couple of years ago, they crossed Michael Maris off their suspect list. And I want to put it out there, some sources speculated that this, air quotes, obsession that he had with Katherine's murder was because Maris held an incredible amount of guilt. It wasn't guilt that he killed her, but it was guilt that because he was campus security that night and it was his job to keep the students safe.
I can see that. It's on his watch.
So I don't want to say one way or another, but if that is true, it is really sad that he shouldered that blame.
Yeah, it doesn't make it less creepy, but it does help to understand it a little more.
Yes. But unfortunately, this is where the case goes cold again, and it's going to stay cold for 2 decades.
Wow.
So in December of 2002, a call comes into the Mobile Police Department. Detective Michael Morgan takes the call, and on the other line is an officer from the police department in Pascagoula, Mississippi, which, as you'll recall, is the hometown of Katherine, Tom, Tish, and Jamie. Mm-hmm. The officer goes on to explain that they got a call from a man who is currently in AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of this person's sponsees had come to them with a pretty wild confession. And I will openly admit I am incredibly ignorant and uneducated in AA and their practices, so forgive me for that, but researching this case, I learned that one of the steps is to make amends with people who you may have done wrong. So this person says that one of their sponsees had come to them and said, I did something awful. I need to make amends, but I don't know how to ask this person for their forgiveness because they're deceased. So the guy who had called the police officer had suggested that this sponsee write a letter to the person who they had done wrong. So as the sponsor gets more information, the sponsee goes on to say that the reason they need to make amends is also because they're the reason the person is dead. The sponsee confesses to killing 18-year-old Katherine Foster back in 1980.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, now before we go any further, I need to stop and say that this next part of the case will differ greatly depending on what source you go to. All sources will say that the person who called the police station was an AA sponsor, and it was their sponsee that said, basically, I did something bad, but the person's deceased, what do I do? Mm-hmm. And that the sponsor told them to write a letter. But this is where things are going to change according to where you read or watch. Some sources say that this sponsor was a man named Wayne, who our killer had just straight up started confessing to about the murder. Other sources will say that the sponsor was kind of able to guess what the letter was about, and in turn, they kind of guessed the victim, and that's why they were calling police. And finally, other sources will say that the caller was a gentleman named Ricky. And this is who I am going to go with. Of all the research I did, Ricky was the one who was actually mentioned in articles that intensively covered the trial.
Oh. In the grand scheme, it doesn't matter, it sounds like. It's the concept, not so much the person. So, I mean, maybe they just kind of took some liberties with the facts.
Well, it's annoying as shit when you're trying to figure out what actually happened.
It's the worst, I know.
The point here is that someone in AA confessed to their sponsor about killing Katherine. And if anyone wants more information about what the other sources say, seriously, shoot us an email and I will be more than happy to send the sources and we can talk about what you think, because I'm dying to know the actual truth here. Well, when Detective Morgan asks, okay, well, who is the sponsee? He's told that the person's name is Jamie Lettsam. This name doesn't ring a bell with the detectives, and it doesn't show up in any of the case files. But after a little digging, he finds out that Letson is this woman's married name. In 1980, at the time of Katherine's murder, she was known as Jamie Kellum. So detectives began looking into Jamie's life since college, and they discovered that Jamie has quite a record. She had spent the last 2 decades in and out of jail, nothing violent, but there were tons of theft charges, check fraud, bank fraud, things like that. Now, police want to know more about Jamie, and they really want to know more about this letter, because now apparently there's this letter floating around that confesses everything. So they start talking to people in her life, including her cousin. And we're never given the cousin's name, but when police talked to her, she had a lot of really important information for them. And this cousin confirms the letter and doesn't go into much detail except to say that she believed Jamie's stepfather had the letter in his possession. So police are dying to get their hands on this letter, so they visit Jamie's stepfather. And police approach him and they ask if he had heard about a letter that Jamie may have written. And according to I think it was Detective Morgan on one of the TV shows, the stepfather goes, "Oh, you mean the letter?"
You mean this letter right here?
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
Side note, why is this guy, why did he know about this confession letter and yet he didn't tell
and
police?
Not say anything. Yeah. That's disturbing.
Not cool. So he takes them to his garage where apparently he had a row of lockers, high school lockers. Mm-hmm. And in one of these locked lockers, he pulls out a handwritten letter.
Weird.
As the detectives read this letter, they are totally blown away. Not only does this letter confess to killing Katherine, but it also gives them motive.
So she just spills all this as part of her AA thing. That's quite the secret to divulge. This isn't like she took a baseball card from a grocery store in 1982. It's like a full-on murder confession.
This is big, yeah.
Wow.
The letter begins with, quote, "Dear Katherine, after all these years, I have come to you. It is me, Jamie, the girl who took your life. I don't know where to begin," end quote. So detectives take this letter and they bring it back to Mobile and they give it to their forensic team and they're able to pull prints which come back as a match to Jamie Kellum Lutson. So now the investigators are like, let's go, let's get her. Well, they go to the DA to get an arrest warrant, and the DA says, no, this letter isn't going to cut it.
What?
Well, first of all, at this point, detectives had learned that Jamie Lettsam was a well-documented liar. Many people said this.
Okay, so maybe she's just blowing smoke.
Well, and you got to think back on top of that. During the documented time of Katherine's death, Jamie had a solid alibi.
That's true.
So the detectives are crushed. They believe that Jamie did this. So police go back to the original medical examiner. Remember, Dr. Leroy Riddick. Mm-hmm. And they explain everything. And Dr. Riddick tells them that in 1980, they didn't have so much of the technology and so much of the knowledge that they have today. And he is very open in saying that he very well could have made a mistake.
I appreciate that honesty, because if more departments and experts were like that, I feel like some of these cases wouldn't linger the way they do. Remember, Ray Crone And that dentist,
that guy.
Ray Rawson, who knew he screwed up, told his colleague he screwed up, and then had the chance to fix it, but didn't. And then Ray spent 10 years on death row because of it. Or there was another one too like that. David Reed with Janet Monge, except that was the opposite because Janet Monge re-examined David's remains all those years later and said exactly what Riddick is saying. Like, I was working with what I had at the time.
Yeah.
Things have changed. I have a different opinion now and I screwed up. We're all human. And I feel like honesty is, your mom's taught you that from birth. Honesty is the best policy. And it is.
Yes. Well, by now, this window of her being killed 8 to 24 hours before she was found, this had been guiding the investigation for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So this means that all of those, quote, rock solid alibis for 2:38 a.m. on Saturday, February 23rd, 1980 are now like invalid. They mean nothing.
So it's almost like starting from scratch. Now that we have this letter, let's work off this and try to work backward from her.
Exactly. So investigators now need to figure out when in those 2-ish days that Katherine was unaccounted for, when was she actually murdered?
Because what did Riddick say? 8 to 24 hours.
8 to 24 hours, yes.
Yeah.
So the investigators know where they need to go. My future home, the University of Tennessee Body Farm.
It's true. I already reserved you a plot.
They better have a tag on it that says reserved.
And like a corner office, not near anybody.
Can I have a single room, please?
Is there some kind of fence post I can be near just out in the corner somewhere?
All by myself. Well, for anyone who isn't familiar, the University of Tennessee's Body Farm, it's not really called that, but it's a forensic research facility where donated human bodies are studied as they naturally decompose.
Mm-hmm.
And scientists use this research to better understand time of death, body recovery, and other forensic clues, which then helps investigators solve crimes and identify human remains. This is the friggin' coolest thing ever to me.
I think so too.
So the Mobile detectives head to Tennessee and they meet with a forensic anthropologist who take them out through the farm, for lack of a better word. So they take the detectives to these 2 female bodies that had been out in the elements in conditions very similar to Katherine's crime scene. Now, one of these 2 bodies had been there for 48 hours and the other had been out there for 60 hours. When they examined these 2 bodies, even on the one that had been out there for 60 hours, like more hours, there is a very, very minimal decomposition.
Really?
And there's also very minimal insect activity. This basically immediately tells investigators that Katherine very well could have been killed the day she went missing from campus, like that Thursday, February 21st, 1980 in the late morning, which would then mean the last person to have been with Katherine was Jamie Kellum Letson.
So as you were just going through that when I was questioning it, have you ever heard of, it's called forensic taphonomy?
No.
So it's not like a technique, it's just the study of what happens to people after death. And just from having spoken to dozens of experts over the years, I learned that the biggest factor that determines how fast a body breaks down is temperature. Mm-hmm. And analysts will tell you that decomposition essentially speeds up with heat. Like that's why when you go down to when we're talking about cases in Texas in July, when there's no air conditioning on, those bodies are, I don't even want to describe what they are.
Decomp sets in really quickly.
Yeah. But when on the flip side of that coin, it slows way, way down in the cold. You're putting a body on ice, basically.
Wow.
So the fact that Katherine disappeared in late February, like even in Alabama, you're talking about cooler winter temperatures, which would drastically lower the decomposition and all those bugs. You notice you don't see as many bugs in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the exact 2 things that the investigators noted in this case that were minimal. So the fact that when you said in the beginning that she was like, looked like she just laid down to take a nap, that it's all making total sense now. What was the date again?
February 21st, 1980 at like 11 a.m.-ish.
1980.
Is it taking you to Weather Underground?
Weather Spark. Okay, yeah, so high of 65, low of 44. So, I mean, 44 is not warm by any means. You're only, 12 degrees above freezing, so that tracks.
Yeah, so that makes sense why there was little decomp and little insect activity.
Crazy.
Well, now this was finally enough to go to the DA and get an arrest warrant for Jamie. Yes. So finally, on November 21st, 2008, and remember, the phone call about the AA person had been December of 2002.
Yeah, 6 years this is lingering.
Like, the things that I've told you about in the last 10 minutes took 6 years to happen.
I was shocked earlier about that confession wasn't enough to get a warrant, but looking back, it makes a lot of sense because people say all kinds of crazy shit. If you started trying to get warrants for all the things that people just say, I know it was very pointed and very specific, but at the same time, is it enough to like go raid in somebody's house?
Well, and we've seen before where like a coroner or medical examiner will put one reason of death or whatever, and it has to get like legally changed before they can do anything else.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that wasn't brought up in this case about how like if the time of death kind of thing had to be legally changed or not. But the DA did say that because it was publicly stated or documented that she had been dead 8 to 24 hours, you know, they couldn't use it to go up against Jamie, I guess.
Sure.
I couldn't be a cop because if I don't get my way, I throw a tantrum. So that DA would have gotten an earful.
Well, yeah, and you're also would be Sergeant Gut Feeling.
It's true. Everybody would be in jail.
What do you think about this, Sergeant Gut Feeling? Book him. Get a warrant.
I don't like his face. Lock him up.
You just can't do that.
Well, detectives finally have their arrest warrant. So they track Jamie down and they discover she's living in a sort of group home in Jackson, Mississippi. And I've seen this referred to as a halfway house and as a homeless shelter. So I'm not really sure which one it is, which is why I'm just saying group home. So police decide to pay her a visit and they're hoping to catch her and like catch her completely off guard to surprise her. However, when they pull up to this home a few days later, there's this woman standing out front on the porch and she watches the investigators get out of their car and they walk up the sidewalk. And she looks at them and she says, "You're here for me. I'm Jamie."
Go. She's been waiting for it her whole life, probably, the past 30 years.
Well, side note, we find this out in one of the shows. The detectives, they were like shocked that they were like, how did she know we were coming?
Yeah.
Well, they would come to find out that like the receptionist or administrative assistant in the police department had been tasked with booking hotel accommodations while the detectives were in Jackson, Mississippi. And instead of checking, I don't know, Expedia or Travelocity, because this is 2008, guys, this assistant had called the actual group home and asked for hotel recommendations.
Oh my God.
Because the detectives were coming to town. So like the director of this home who took the call had like jokingly said to everyone like, "Oh man, anybody know why Mobile, Alabama police are coming here?" Like that's weird.
God. But yeah, she would have looked so suspicious if she just like ran away then at that point.
Right. So
yeah.
I mean, that kind of sucks that they missed out on like kind of surprising her, but
it doesn't change the outcome.
Right. So they arrest Jamie, and in a recorded interview, Jamie would eventually confess that she had killed Katherine. And we can probably play some of this interview, but basically it's her crying, and she's like, "Oh, you probably think I'm a terrible person."
Yeah, I do. People who kill people are usually the worst.
The worst.
I'm a terrible, terrible person. I would do something like that. She was a good girl and a friend of mine.
She would go on to admit that she killed Katherine for one reason. Tom Jadon, the boyfriend.
You're kidding me. This is about a guy.
It's about a guy. So I purposely left this out a couple minutes ago when I read you the beginning of Katherine's letter. So the line after she said, "I don't know where to start," it goes on to say, quote, "I was your friend, but I was obsessed with Tom and you were in my way. Kate, wow. I'm acutely aware of what I did that day. In ending your life, I robbed your family and loved ones of a future with you. Only God knows what you might have contributed." End quote.
Yeah, and talk about somebody who had a world of good ahead of her. It was Katherine.
Oh, that part pisses me off so much about this case. Like, she would have done so many amazing things.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie continues to tell these detectives that she had been obsessed with Tom. And she had straight up killed Katherine because she blamed Katherine for being in the way of her and Tom being together. She talks about how she had met Tom in high school and she had quickly become infatuated with him, to the point that she was telling people, like telling her family, telling other friends, that he was her boyfriend. Like, she had this whole life made up in her head, and she would like steal pictures of him. She was just deranged. And to be totally honest, and I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, other than them maybe interacting at sporting events, like, he didn't really have any idea who she was.
So she was like doing this from afar too. That's even creepier.
Yes. Well, then when they all ended up at University of South Alabama, I don't even know if he realized that he had gone to high school with Jamie. And I'm sure by now you can guess that this was not just a crazy coincidence that Jamie ended up at USA.
No, I'm sure she picked that specifically because Tom was going there.
Exactly. And then she managed to purposely like weasel her way into being friends with Tish and Katherine.
Just to get to him.
It gets even more crazy when you find out that actually Jamie, because again, I said she had been a really good tennis player. She had apparently gotten a scholarship to play tennis at least one other college. Mm-hmm. She turned it down because she was so obsessed with Tom. Like, that's a
This is a guy. How many people are on this planet? There are so many guys. There are so many girls. Like, there are other people other than this one
Seriously. I'm like, what was she thinking? Oh my God. And wait, this would later come out in court. This psycho bitch was so obsessed with Tom, she carried around a lock of his hair.
Oh my God. What?
Creep.
Do you know what erotomania is?
No.
I'm dropping all these terms. That's another thing that we hear it in those celebrity stalking cases. Like, it's super rare, but it's a disorder where a person holds this unshakable belief that they're in a relationship with someone, usually in a higher social class, like a celebrity, but those people have no idea who they even are.
Okay, hold on. I'm feeling personally attacked right now because I feel like you're saying that all of my imaginary boyfriends, like Joe Kenda, Colleen Fitzpatrick, like
Ken Brennan.
I'm sorry. Are we not best friends? What are you telling me?
I think you're an erotomaniac.
I think you're confused, but go ahead. I'll let you tell your story.
This is a textbook example of that, and obviously in my non-clinical opinion, but she invented this relationship that never happened. She refused to accept that Tom was not available and or interested in her. And she reorganized her entire life the way you'd said she'd picked a different college because of it.
Yeah.
Around Tom. It's like her delusions about this relationship created a perfect storm. And in Jamie's twisted mind, Katherine was an obstacle essentially to live out her fantasy. Creepy stuff.
It's crazy. And just the whole going to college there because of him, but then finding out about his girlfriend and her best friend and sneaking your way into that that's just
the
gross.
Worst. You don't, and that's just the general rule. I've told Jake this when he started to date. I'm like, date anyone you want, just not your friend's girlfriend.
Right.
Even after they break up, don't.
No, definitely don't. Well, eventually, the entire story of the murder would come out. So let's go back to the morning of February 21st, 1980. Jamie, and Tish, remember they were supposed to go shopping. Well, Tish actually had an early class that morning, so Jamie and Katherine are just kind of hanging out waiting for her. And Jamie tells Katherine that she needed to find the specific plant for her botany class. And she asked Katherine if she would go out into the woods or on campus and help her find this very specific plant.
So screwed up. She lured her.
She was taking a botany class. That's totally a valid, I could see that.
That's what psychos do. They prey on the things they know about you and the things they've learned about you. They're using it against you.
Right.
Awful.
Well, yeah, Jamie asked Katherine, will you go with me to find this? And Katherine says yes. So the girls did take Jamie's car and they drove a little ways and got out and they head into the woods. And once they're far enough in that at least Jamie thought they were isolated enough, they really weren't that far away from campus. But Jamie started to hang back, so Katherine was in front of her, and that's when she pulls out the gun. By the way, a gun she had stolen from her grandmother. And as Katherine is walking a couple feet in front of her, she pulls out the gun and shoots Katherine in the back of the head.
What a coward.
Uh-huh. Then she fell to the ground. And that's when Jamie went right up to Katherine's head, put the gun to her temple, and pulled the trigger again. Then Jamie ran back to her car, drove back to campus, chucked the gun in a dumpster, and then went back to her car in the dorm parking lot to meet up with Tish, where she would then pretend to be a concerned friend.
What a scumbag wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, and just the fact that, like, Katherine was such a good person, and
yeah. And
Jamie
your friend
clearly wasn't. And, like, Katherine didn't do anything wrong. She dated a boy that you didn't have a chance with. Get over it.
And it makes you question your whole friendship. Like, were we ever, I mean, she obviously can't question anything now because of this woman, but were they even friends to begin with? Or was their entire friendship, quote unquote, just an act to just get in close to Tom? Like, she was nothing to her.
Well, and I'll cover this in a minute, but towards the end of her life, I think Katherine was starting to see that something was seriously wrong with Jamie as a human.
Wow.
Well, when it came time for trial, Jamie Letzum would plead not guilty. And her defense attorney would point the finger at Michael Maris, the security guard who had taken his own life.
How convenient to blame a dead guy.
I know. And as we said earlier, like, he was a good suspect. So I can see this defense, which makes me so sad to think about. Like, so the defense also tried to say that Jamie had made up the whole confession. And to be fair, I mentioned this earlier, multiple people who knew Jamie at some point during her life, they all talked about what a liar she was. Just constantly trying to make shit up and impress other people and make people like her. Like, for example, she made up those lies about Tom being her boyfriend.
Right. And I hope they marched some of those people up to the stand and had them say that, because that lays more, it's circumstantial, but it paints a picture of who this woman is.
But what's frustrating is, like, they're using her own shittiness of being a psychopath liar. They're using it as a defense. Like, yeah, you're right. Nuts. She's a shitty liar, but that means she didn't do it.
Welcome to the justice system.
Well, during trial, it would come out, I just mentioned this, that prior to Katherine's murder, she had actually talked to Tom and maybe even Tish about Jamie and how Katherine was really concerned about Jamie's mental health, to the point that she was about to speak to her psychology professor about Jamie.
Wow.
And Katherine believed that Jamie was a thief. So something must have happened, but even though I completely believe that Jamie killed Katherine out of jealousy, I almost wonder if she had, like, stolen stuff or something from Katherine or Tish or something, and maybe Katherine had found it. I don't know. I wish we knew more, but
I think it's a combination of everything. I think that might have been the catalyst that it's like, okay, other stuff's mounting. Now's my chance. Now I'm going to do it.
Yes. Well, we're almost done, but I have to say the one thing that happened during the trial that I loved so much, Tom got up to testify. Good. And I'm going to read you a quote from a news article about his testimony on the stand. And for context, he apparently had no idea that Jamie felt this way about him. So, quote, he said he wishes he had known to tell her that they would never have a romance and that she could have moved on and left us alone, end quote.
You know what, though? Then maybe she kills him instead. Maybe
that's true.
So, I mean, I don't think there's a right answer when you're dealing with somebody like her. Well,
I just love that Tom said that, because in Jamie's disturbed, twisted, sociopath brain, she saw Katherine as the problem. She saw it that she couldn't be with Tom because of Katherine. And it's like, no, bitch, you couldn't be with Tom because he didn't even look at you twice.
Yeah.
He loved Katherine because she was a kind, smart, driven, compassionate young woman who did so much to make the world a better place, which is quite literally the opposite of everything that Jamie Kellum Lutzen is.
Well, and that just shows it was a fantasy, an obsession, that she was actually sick in the head.
I think you're right. And I also think the fact that we know she was basically a pathological liar and that she was quite possibly a kleptomaniac kind of thing. And I'm not diagnosing her. I'm just saying, like, we know that she stole from people and she's got all charges that say she stole. And luckily, the jury didn't buy Jamie's not guilty crap. And after deliberating for less than a day, they determined she was guilty of first-degree murder. And she was eventually sentenced to life in prison. Unfortunately, this was not in LWAP. She was actually eligible for parole as early as 2023.
Shut up.
After serving only 13 years. Thankfully, though, there was a hearing on December 12th, 2023, and the parole board decided that she should continue rotting in prison, and they denied her parole.
I wonder when her next one's up, though. Like, I think she's going to be someone who gets out earlier than you think.
Well, and even now, she's on like it's not a work release, because she's still in prison, but she's allowed to like leave and go to work with other prisoners. Like, she still has to wear her prison garb. And so I'm not quite sure what she's doing. And I'm sorry, I should have done more research on this part. I forget what it's called.
You know what's funny is the last Curious case that I did about the doctor with the green smoothies. He basically worked at a juice factory, which was insane to me because he was a juicer. That was his whole career.
Oh, like that was his prison job?
That was his prison job. He was actually making, I forget how much percentage of the juice that goes to California prisons. It was called the juice factory. So,
no shit.
I know that they're allowed to like leave and do things. So whatever that program is.
I hate that because you know what? Katherine can't leave and go do things.
I know. I think my biggest takeaway from this case is the fact that when we see a case that takes 20, 30, 40 years to solve, it's usually some genetic genealogy match, like you said, or DNA that catches up with the perp eventually. But this was just Jamie's conscience eating at her, which I love because I feel like that's what all criminals should have to go through, the weight of carrying what you did for all those years. But like her own guilt comes up in this recovery program, and it's what finally gave Katherine's family an answer. And I know it could not have been easy waiting 3 decades for the truth to come out, but I can only hope that the Fosters, they got some measure of justice knowing that the person who took their daughter is exactly where she belongs.
Yeah, I mean, my issue with that is obviously she shouldn't feel that guilty because she stood up there and said, no, I didn't do it. So it's
yeah, that's a good point. There was no remorse.
Yeah, she's an awful human. And you know what? And this might not be my place to say this at all. Reading what I did about Katherine, and of course I did not know her, but I feel like she was such a good person that she would forgive Jamie.
That's probably true. It sounds that way.
And like that, it bums me out because I'm just a bitch. But like for Katherine, I'm so just like, wow, you really are amazing. Like,
yeah. Do we need a palate cleanser? I have something to talk about that I just read today. It's not so much a palate cleanser, but I don't think it's going to cleanse anything. I think it's going to make you feel worse. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
Just cleansing my palate.
Have you read the article about the woman in Brazil who was rope jumping or bungee jumping? Have you seen the video?
No. Oh, God.
I'm going to try to describe this to you. So it's a tourist. I think her name's Maria. So I don't know where she's a tourist from, but she was in Brazil and doing one of those outdoor adventure-y. It was at some park. I don't know if it was sanctioned or if this was just some like tour group that was running this, but it was essentially, she was up on a 130-foot cliff, rock, whatever. And there were like 3 or 4 dudes who were in charge of putting her safety harness. She was going to bungee jump off the side. These guys pick her up. It's almost like it reminded me of carrying Jesus on the cross. And I hate to use such a dark religious imagery, but she had her arms out like this and they were carrying her above their head and they just throw her off the cliff. There's no rope attached. There's no nothing. They just lobbed her off the side of the cliff. And I heard a report that came out today that she was actually alive for a split second when first responders got to her. And then she eventually passed away, but she fell 130 feet. And the cameraman then like pans to the rope that's on the ground. And you don't want to picture a bungee jump rope. Picture like a wound up, big coiled Indiana Jones rope, you know? So I'm not sure what she was actually doing, but I heard it's called rope jumping. But they essentially murdered this woman. And now, from what I understand, 6 people have been arrested for it. It was the most bizarre thing. They just took a human being, threw her off the side.
But wait, did they just all forget to do their part of the safety training? Or
I don't
like
know.
The safety hooking you up to things?
I don't know what's going to take 2 seconds and watch this video. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I think there's a mystery afoot. And there's multiple angles of it. And that's what I don't get is there's people standing around too filming it. No one said, yo, there's nothing attached to her. So I don't know if this is, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Something's messed up here and I don't know what it is.
That's scary. Did you just send it to me?
I did.
Oh God, that's terrifying.
Right?
They just like threw her. You
I
could
have no answers.
see one person forgetting, but that's why you have another person to be like, oh shit, we need to do that. Like, what?
Yeah. And now I did read they arrested 6. I wonder if it's changed since I read that.
Wow, that's so scary.
Footage online shows 2 men holding her by the arms and a third by her feet, launching her over the edge without her harness connecting to the main rope. 6 people were initially detained, but 3 men, Malcolm Fernandez Sintra, Luis Felipe Egoroff, and Victor De Freitas Gonçalves, were formally charged with homicide and eventual intent, meaning they knowingly engaged in a risky activity that could cause death. The men were reportedly in shock and could not recall exactly how the rope attachment failed, citing a blackout during setup. Give me a break.
Yeah.
The 2 suspects fled into the forest after the fall, but were later captured with police and helicopter assistance.
Okay, and then you fled. Like, you knew you did
That's
something
what I'm
wrong.
saying. The jump was an unlicensed operation. The company had no official authorization to conduct such activities on the bridge. The bridge is abandoned and under federal management, but local officials say it has been neglected and are suing the federal government for oversight failure. Wow.
So I wonder if this was like people who live there and they like go to tourists and they're like, hey, do you want to go do this thing? Like it's not like an excursion by like a licensed company. It's like random townies doing it.
You know what's messed up is I actually saw this because when I read this story, I saw the other stories that went with it. She actually was posting about this jump like right before the jump, and she was pointing to a danger sign. She was like, gonna jump off this. I forget what she was saying, but like, yeah. And her fiance was there too, and he like suffered immense emotional damage. Like he's being treated right now. So,
oh my
wow.
God, I don't think there's any treatment in the world. You're gonna be messed up forever.
Yeah. So sorry for that, but it was on my mind, and I'm like, I need to tell Melissa about this if she hasn't seen it. So sorry for making your palate filthier.
Is that even possible? Moving on.
What do we have next week? We have something really, really cool for you guys. And I don't know if you've been following online, but next week, you guys, we are going to bring you a conversation with Steve and Christy Gonçalves. And they are the parents of Kaylee Gonçalves, who gets lumped into the big case that we all know as the Idaho 4. The college murders in Moscow, Idaho. So, I mean, I don't think there's anybody, unless you've been living under a rock, that doesn't know about that case. So through this bookmark project, we became friends with Christy, especially, and Steve, and they agreed to come on the show. And I'm proud to say we're going to be one of the first people to interview them about the recently, if you guys have been following that case, some more autopsy details came out specifically about Kaylee. And they were not happy because they were not notified. It's exactly what they're fighting against. And it happened again, just like it did a couple months ago. So we're going to get to talk about that. We're going to talk about Kaylee growing up and who she was. And we're also going to talk about all the rampant conspiracy theories online about the case and how it affects them as a family. They're going to get a chance to talk to some of the critics and some of the people that just like to run their mouth online. So I'm excited to let them clear the air and also tell you some stories about Kaylee that nobody's ever heard.
This was a tough interview, but guys, I promise that there are a couple parts that you will be cracking up. I've actually thought about a couple things we've talked about since then.
So funny.
And I still keep laughing. So
I feel like she's you. I feel like some of the stories they told would be you as a child too. So
Absolutely. So definitely tune in. Do not miss that.
Yes.
And then after that, we start a new month. We will be in July. So we will talk more about that at the end of next week's episode. So guys, if you have any questions, comments, or just anything you want to put out there about the college crimes block, please feel free to reach out to us. You can hit us up on our socials at Murder Unscripted. And that does include Reddit, just so everybody knows. Or you can email us at murderunscriptedpod@gmail.com. Or you can send us a note through our website, www.murderunscriptedpod.com.
Please do. We love hearing from you guys.
We do. So, all right, until next week, we hope that you stay safe, stay hydrated, and remember that perverts don't wear signs that say they're perverts. But they might try to steal your boyfriend.
Or they might try to throw you off a cliff.
True story. Ugh.
God, man. See you guys.
Bye.
all my things. I'm a terrible, terrible person.
Then